Welcome everyone to another AZ Ray video. Today we're going to talk about a highly requested film that's getting a lot of buzz called The Last Showgirl. We're going to talk a little bit about the history, the importance of the Jubilee, the Showgirls in Vegas, and then we're going to get into the film. Just before we get started, guys, just a quick spoiler warning alert. The first half of the video, we're going to go over the history, but the second half, we are going to go into the plot. But there will be timestamps in the description in case you want to skip ahead. Yep. Thank you so much. Let's get started. The film is a journey of 4 generations of women. They learn on their journey of acceptance and self-worth, of love and femininity, and they become stronger in the process, right? Every generation of women has their own stories and struggles that they have to deal with trying to become themselves, right? Femininity is full of layers of beauty, fitness, health, glamour, fashion, presentation, personality, right? There's so many layers to it. The Jubilee of the film, the famous Showgirl Center, represents all these things. It's a historical stage that displays women in elegance and the body in a human art form, because the human body is a work of art. The showgirls were talented dancers. They became symbols for Las Vegas as well as for showgirls. Dancers were full of struggles in the industry, of course, because dancers are athletes and there is no linear process to become a dancer, to become recruited, and to become successful. Most of them have high-end Juilliard art backgrounds, ballet backgrounds, or various specialties, and were able to get a lot of success in these various showgirl clubs like the Jubilee in Vegas. The 1950s and 60s were a booming time in Vegas. Most of Vegas at that time was run by the mob. Of course, there was legitimate investment, and the showgirls were an integral part of that growth of Las Vegas. When you think of Las Vegas, you think of a showgirl. That's what comes to your brain, right? They were able to make a very powerful impact, and they brought in a lot of intentions. They brought in a lot of money. They brought in a lot of gamblers. A lot of those shows were called the French review shows, and they attracted large audiences, especially because the companies didn't have to pay a lot of money for like some major celebrity or some kind of major star at the time. The whole allure of nudity and art and of the unknown and of this great spectacular event attracted audiences. These places were full of music, dance, and glamour and art. Most of the women were 5'8" to 6'4", so they showed off and accentuated their long legs. The sets were very, very expensive, up to $10 million in some cases, up to like 128 performers per show, 40 women at once. Oftentimes, the women also had various talents as well as like singing, gymnastic skills. You also had like male magicians and male singers, sometimes even opera singers. So it was this collaborative extravaganza, not too different to what Cirque du Soleil became today, because dancers, in most of these cases, are women. They were exploited, of course, unfortunately, because of being women of color, and because of these powerful women wanting to ask sexual favors of these workers. Although they weren't sex workers in that aspect, they were dancers. They were not given, the respect that they deserve, right? There was a lot of harassment. And then as far as like the height compared to the actresses, it's not too bad, right? Pamela Anderson's 5'6", about 1.68 meters, not too far away from the 5'8". Jamie Lee Curtis is 5'9", so she hits the perfect target of 1.79 meters. So she's around the average showgirl height. The other stars, Brenda Song is 5'2" feet and 1.57 meters. And Kiernan Shipka is also 5'2" feet and 1.57 meters. And we see the story of the struggles of these various people. And as Gia Coppola explains in her process of trying to hire the star for this film, right? Pamela Anderson was the perfect choice, right? Pamela Anderson was an icon for most of the 90s and early 2000s due to Playboy, due to Baywatch, later on the VIP show, and of course her unfortunate scandals regarding various sex tapes and her relations with various celebrities. And it kind of tarnished her career, right? She always aspires and touts various women that she's like aspires to be like. And unfortunately, she was never given the chance and she was never taken seriously, right, as an actress. She almost has a very similar dynamic as Marilyn Monroe, right? She's a woman that was not given credit for being sexy and alluring. Not so different from Scarlett Johansson. There's actually an art to it. It's not just, oh, they're just doing that, right? There's an art to it. There's there's a skill to it, right? And it wasn't until Marilyn Monroe's final film where we actually were finally able to see her acting range. Fortunately, we get to see this now with this film with Pamela Anderson, right? It's a film that she was born to play. And now she has the ability to become a woman that's respected for both her beauty, her intelligence, and her acting, like a Sophia Loren or Maria Felix, for those of you with like a Latino, Latinx background, or as well as like an Elizabeth Taylor, right? Was also someone who's known for her beauty, but as well as for acting and as well as for her activism. These wonderful female icons were respected for their acting and their beauty, as mentioned. And Pamela Anderson was always referencing that she wanted to become like Jane Fonda, another actress that was known for her beauty, that was strong, and was able to successfully manage the role as a sex icon as well as being a successful actress. So she often quotes Jane Fonda a lot. And as we see the struggles with her relationships with her daughter, we see the growth, and we see also the growth of Pamela Anderson's character, and we see that she has to come to terms with like the new potential chapter, right? Is this the end? What's coming next, right? How can someone who is so important as a symbol, being a showgirl, how can they move forward? What are they supposed to do next? Isn't there supposed to be a linear path for them, right? And to go a little further about Pamela Anderson's icon, she wasn't just a TV show actress, right? She was also an author. She also was even a music video vixen. She appeared all over the place in various videos, right? She was in a Kid Rock video. She was even in hip hop. She was even in a Jay-Z video, and she was even in a Kanye West video, right? So she's been in all kinds of different things, right? She's an icon. She's memorable, and I'm excited for what's to come ahead for her, because we're more than just our looks, right? There's depth to everybody. And I'm excited that the world's curious to learn more about Pamela Anderson. I wanted to reach out to someone with Playboy, burlesque, entertainment background like Pamela Anderson. So I reached out to Holly, and she actually enjoyed the film and found Pamela's character relatable. Here are her comments on the film. I definitely found her character relatable. Performing in stage is very empowering. It was the best, highest paying job I had up until that point. I think my biggest takeaway from the film is that we all have choices to make in how we allot our time. It's almost impossible not to look back and wish you had spent more time on certain things, which I'm sure in this case, regarding the last Showgirl film, she means motherhood. Holly Madison is also a mother, and there's difficulties while being a person of influence and also scrutiny due to her past choices. A lot of her emphasis focused on her beauty and not her as a person. Similar to Pamela Anderson's character, Holly Madison also played a crucial role in revamping burlesque popularity. Her and other headliners like Mel B grew the Peep Show in Las Vegas. Peep Show also closed down, like the Jubilee in Las Vegas, as well as the last Showgirl. So there's these parallels of these big shows with these famous women being closed down. So that's why I thought Holly was perfect, because she was part of this major Las Vegas show that unfortunately closed down. Holly Madison also has a connection to Angel Perino since she appeared on her reality show, Holly's World. Both Holly Madison and Shelly help future generations of women perform on stage. Also, just a quick side note, burlesque and showgirl isn't the same thing. They were actually competitors in the Las Vegas scene. But yeah, Holly Madison was like the closest example that I could find of somebody that had all these similarities with Pamela Anderson's character, Shelley. Dance is a unique art form. It's a powerful art form. It's so powerful that Harvard University, New England Medicine, North Dakota Minot University have done several cognitive, neural, and psychological studies that have found that dance has been very powerful when it comes to neural recognition, spatial recognition, long term and short term memory, as well as physical health and overall neural health. The reason I bring up all these facts is that we're seeing all these studies and research that see how powerful dance is. It's not surprising that all this powerful empowerment that we feel from dance and that Shelley's character feels from dance isn't just something that she's experiencing. It's like scientifically proven that it is a thing. So for her, dance has become not just an art, not just her career, but a way for her to liberate herself and reclaim her life. And you see it in different sequences throughout the film. And when she's overwhelmed, she'll like maybe sometimes smoke a cigarette or whatever. And she'll have like these playful dances where she does like either a pirouette or like some kind of turn or just these subtle movements because it becomes a healing process for her. So, of course, I'm sure Shelley would have loved to get, the support from her daughter, but unfortunately she didn't, right? Her last dance was fulfilling, but it didn't ultimately come in the way that she wanted it to be, right? And unfortunately, that's how it goes sometimes. Because especially with young adults, sometimes young adults, they just want to hurt their parents when they're hurting. They don't see their parents as humans. They don't see all the obstacles and things that they go through to try to be a parent. And that creates obstacles for the parents, right? And it's a little bittersweet. I definitely enjoyed the film. I would give it a 7.7 out of 10. I found it powerful, charming, and overall pretty funny. And I think that was some of the strongest aspects that I found for it. I didn't give it an 8 because I think as far as like the drama elements and different elements of it lacked. It probably needed a little more substance, a little more juice to kind of give it a little bit of a higher rating, but it's still great. I highly recommend it for anybody. Like if you're curious and if you're interested and you thought about watching this, check it out. It's interesting and it's great. And I appreciated Pamela Anderson's performance. I thought it was great. I thought she was charming and alluring. Like we alluded to earlier, she kind of has that like Marilyn Monroe, Scarlett Johansson thing going on, where like it may seem like she's not doing anything to be charming and alluring, but there's an art to that. That is a form of acting. To be that alluring, to be that like, to grab the audience attention and stuff. It was great. And she also did great for the tougher dramatic scenes as well. And she did great in comedy, but she's always had a good comedy shtick. Like you could see glimpses of it in Baywatch. And she also leaned into comedy a lot in her VIP series. So I wasn't too surprised. So yeah, the film was great. I really, okay, maybe I shouldn't say it was great. It was good. It was really good. And I really enjoyed it. And the film was very well shot. I really appreciated all the different like glamour shots, the stuff with the makeup and whatnot. And the reason why I like the glamour shots so much is because there was an emphasis on like the makeup and the various outfits. And I almost feel like the outfits was like this armor for the dancers and whatnot. Like it kind of empowered them. Or even if it wasn't armor, right? Kind of like maybe like similar to like a suit for like some kind of businessman or CEO or some kind of corporate position. It was like, it puts you in a different state. It empowers the individual. So I thought it was kind of cool seeing them go through that process. And when it came to different details like the gems, the crowns, the wings, the feathers, right? It was all part of that process because being on stage is a very vulnerable thing, right? Even if they are on stage with a bunch of other women, it's still a scary thing, right? It's like you're out there, right? And there's a vulnerability to it. And there's a literal vulnerability and there's an actual vulnerability because of the partial nude or the risque elements to it. And then the film also talks about, the transitions of the future, right? Because we have 4 different generations of the film. It doesn't really show the oldest generation, but it talks about the oldest generation, like, oh, the heyday, the 50s, the 60s, the 80s, when things were amazing. And then you see how things are now. And it's unfortunately, even mentioned in the movie, like a dinosaur, it's like in the past, right? And now we see this transition into like a very sexualized, showgirl slash burlesque scene. The old traditional French style of showgirl is gone, and now new this new way of doing things, very sexualized, gyrating on. And you can see that Shelly, Pamela Anderson characters, kind of doesn't like this. She feels like it's not as classy, it's not as elegant, right? And we see that shift. Another reason why I enjoyed the movie was because I think in many ways this movie was a metaphor of Pamela Anderson's life, because of her, her various sex scandals and just her being like over sexualized as a sex symbol. She was forced to wear this like scarlet letter of shame throughout most of her career, and she was never allowed to be empowered through it. Just like Shelley was shamed for her career choice, because she could have been a Rockette dancer, she could have been a Broadway dancer, but she felt fulfilled and really enjoyed being a showgirl and was shamed for that, right? So similar to that process, we have that empowerment that she felt, and the film did a good job of mirroring that, and it makes sense why she was casted for it, because it's arguably her life, right? Like, and the film doesn't show where Shelley's characters transition next, and that's kind of the point, right? It's kind of like a metaphor for Pamela Anderson's life. Like, it's like, okay, we'll see what she does next, right? She has that Naked Gun remake coming out soon. We'll see if it's any good. I know Anna Nicole Smith tried to do that remake as well, and I believe it didn't do too great. So yeah, it's not as easy as it sounds to do Naked Gun, right? When we see those type of films, like, oh, it's easy, anybody can do it. No, there's an art to it, even to like goofy slapstick over sexualized humor. It's not as easy as you may think it is, right? I also want to give props to Gia Coppola and Kate Gersten as the writer. They did a phenomenal job. Kate Gersten, she like interviewed various dancers, and she tried to make this, this screenplay, this film, very authentic, because this story is very relatable, right? It's like the single mom that's trying to do the best for her daughter. And yeah, that's all I have to say. This has been your AZ-Ray, not X-ray examination, from A to Z. So thanks for listening to me. Hope you're enjoying these analysis, deep dives, video essays on film, life, culture, psychology, music, anime. It's coming, I promise. If you enjoy this mission, definitely like and subscribe. Thank you for your time. Have a great day.